The sun was rising over the small town where life moved slowly and everyone knew each other. Dust hung in the air, and the smell of fresh hay mixed with the scent of horses. The cowboy rode in on his old horse, his boots dusty from a long ride. People looked up from their daily chores as he passed by. He had a presence that could not be ignored, and a quiet strength that spoke without words. He was a man who carried his past on his shoulders, but did not speak of it. The young woman was at the edge of the town helping her father with the market stall. She had always been independent, strong, and determined. Her hands moved quickly, setting up fruits and vegetables while keeping an eye on the crowd. She noticed the cowboy immediately, but did not show it. People whispered about him when he passed through, and she had heard stories of his past deeds and bravery. She did not fear him, but was curious about the man, who seemed to carry both danger and kindness in his eyes. The day was warm, and the fair was starting. Children ran around with laughter and merchants shouted their prices. The cowboy moved slowly, watching everything. He stopped at the stall where the young woman worked and looked at the fresh vegetables. He did not buy anything but asked a question about the quality of the produce. She answered calmly, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment. There was a spark of recognition, or perhaps challenge in the glance. But neither spoke more than necessary. Suddenly a commotion arose near the edge of the square. A man had spilled a basket of apples and accused a young boy of taking them. People gathered around whispering and pointing fingers. The young woman saw the boy trying to defend himself and noticed the man growing angry. She stepped forward and spoke up, saying the boy did not take anything and that it was an accident. The man laughed at her words and dismissed them. She did not step back, but stood firm. The cowboy watched quietly from a distance, his jaw tightening. He could see the injustice and the courage in her stance. He knew he could step in and stop it, or let her handle it herself. For some reason, he decided to let her speak her truth. Her voice carried over the crowd, and people began to murmur in agreement. The man continued his rant and became more aggressive. The young woman did not flinch. She explained calmly that the boy meant no harm and that the apples had fallen by accident. The crowd started to nod and murmur in support. The cowboy finally moved closer, his presence commanding attention. He did not raise his voice, but his silence made the man uneasy. He stepped between the two calmly and asked the man to step back. The man did not expect anyone to challenge him in that way, and he stepped back reluctantly. The crowd relaxed, and the young woman gave a small nod of gratitude to the cowboy. After the incident was over, she returned to her stall, but could not stop thinking about the cowboy. There was something different about him, something that drew her attention without trying. He moved with purpose, and yet seemed aware of everyone around him. She could not read him fully, and that intrigued her. The cowboy wandered through the fair, observing people, laughing, playing games, and trading goods. He was quiet but attentive, noticing the small details of life in the town. When he passed by her stall again, he nodded slightly and she nodded back. A silent acknowledgement passed between them. It was brief, but meaningful. The rest of the day went on with the fair in full swing. Music played and children ran with ribbons and balloons. The young woman helped her father and exchanged smiles with neighbors. Every now and then she caught a glimpse of the cowboy watching from a distance. There was no fear in her eyes, only curiosity and a growing interest in knowing more about him. The cowboy felt the same. He was not used to noticing someone in a way that mattered. She carried herself with strength and confidence, but there was also warmth in her demeanor. It was a rare combination he had not seen before. As the sun began to set, the fair started to quiet down. The cowboy approached the young woman once more. He spoke a few words about the day and about the way she handled the situation with the boy. His voice was low and steady. She listened carefully and responded with honesty. They spoke for a while about simple things about the town, the fair, and the work they did. There was no rush, only a natural flow of conversation. People were leaving the fair, but they remained in the moment, not noticing the passing time. By the time the sun disappeared behind the hills, the cowboy knew he had made a rare connection. He did not push further, but left with a respectful distance. The young woman watched him ride away, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and admiration. Neither knew what would happen next, but the first step had been taken. A bond had been formed quietly through observation, respect, and mutual understanding. They each went their separate ways, but carried a thought of the other in their minds. It was the beginning of something that would grow slowly and with meaning. Night fell over the town, and a gentle breeze moved through the streets. The market stalls were closed, and the laughter of the day had faded. The young woman sat by the window thinking about the cowboy and the strange pull she felt toward him. The cowboy rode to a nearby hill overlooking the town. He thought about the young woman and the strength she had shown. He had faced many challenges in his life, but something about her presence stayed with him. It was not just attraction, it was respect and a quiet acknowledgement of who each of them were. The first day of their encounter ended without dramatic gestures or confessions. It was simple and real. Both had seen the courage in the other and felt a connection that could not be ignored. The town slept quietly under the stars, but two minds were busy reflecting on the day and on the people they had met. The cowboy and the young woman had met under ordinary circumstances, yet something extraordinary had begun. They did not know what the future held, but both were aware that the encounter had changed something inside them. Morning would come bringing new challenges, new opportunities, and perhaps new moments for them to meet again. The story of the cowboy and the young woman was just beginning, quietly, naturally, and with a sense of realism that made the coming events all the more compelling. It was a meeting that would grow into something neither could ignore, something built on respect, courage, and the freedom to be oneself. The first part of their journey had ended with a simple nod, a brief conversation, and the knowledge that their paths would cross again. The spark was small, but it carried the potential to grow into something that would shape both of their lives deeply and profoundly. The next morning, the town was quiet with only the sound of birds and the occasional footsteps of people heading to work. The cowboy had returned, staying in a small inn at the edge of town. He woke early and prepared for the day ahead, thinking about the young woman from the fair. He remembered her courage and the way she had spoken up for the boy. It was rare to see someone stand so firmly and with kindness. He felt a pull to learn more about her, to see the world she lived in, and to understand what made her strong and gentle. At the same time, the young woman started her day at the market, again helping her father in arranging the produce for the day. Her mind wandered to the cowboy who had helped her yesterday. She remembered his calm presence and the way he had stepped in when things had gotten tense. There was something about him that felt different from others in town. He did not speak to show off or demand respect. He earned it quietly and naturally. She felt a mixture of curiosity and cautious excitement. As the sun climbed higher, the cowboy made his way toward the outskirts of town where a small stream ran, past a few homes. He liked the peace of the place, the sound of water moving over stones and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. It reminded him of life beyond troubles and expectations. He paused at the stream, watching the reflections and thinking of ways to approach the young woman without intruding on her space. He did not want to startle her or seem too forward. Respect was important, and he believed in letting connections grow naturally. Later in the morning, he returned to town, walking slowly along the streets. People greeted him, and he nodded politely. The young woman noticed him from across the street arranging some baskets of fruit. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, a smile passed between them. The connection was unspoken, but clear. She wondered if he would approach, or simply continue to watch from a distance. He chose to approach calmly, stopping a few feet from where she worked. They spoke about small things, the weather, the quality of the fruit, and the rhythm of the market. There was no rush, only steady conversation filled with genuine interest. Each spoke carefully, listening to the other and acknowledging details that mattered. As they talked, a small accident happened nearby. A horse had gotten loose and was running through the market. People panicked and shouted. The cowboy reacted instantly, moving toward the horse and calming it with practiced skill. The young woman followed his movements in awe. He guided the horse safely out of the way and made sure no one was hurt. She stepped closer and thanked him for helping and keeping everyone safe. His expression was calm, and he nodded, acknowledging her words. They continued talking, their voices soft and steady now that the danger had passed. The incident created a new level of trust and understanding between them. She saw him as someone capable and reliable. He saw her as someone caring and composed in the face of unexpected challenges. In the afternoon, they walked together along the edges of town, talking about their lives. The young woman spoke about her family and the work she did at the market. The cowboy shared stories from his travels and the lessons he had learned on the road. They spoke honestly without hiding fears or doubts. Each listened intently, valuing the words and experiences of the other. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from serious matters to light-hearted observations about the town and the day. Laughter came easily, though quietly, both enjoying the simplicity of the moment. As the day progressed, they found a quiet spot under a large oak tree on a hill overlooking the fields. The wind was gentle and carried the scent of grass and wildflowers. They sat together, watching the clouds move slowly across the sky. The cowboy spoke of the value of freedom and choice in life, and how every person should have the right to decide their own path. The young woman listened and agreed, expressing her belief in responsibility and respect for others while maintaining independence. Their ideas connected and created a sense of partnership, forming silently in the space. Between them, the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. They returned to town together, walking slowly through the streets now quieter, with most shops closed. The cowboy suggested a small detour past a quiet stream where the water shimmered in the fading light. They talked about dreams and hopes, imagining places they had never been and things they wished to achieve. The young woman felt a growing sense of comfort with him, a feeling that she could trust him completely. The cowboy felt the same, sensing her strength and warmth in equal measure. There was no pressure, only a mutual recognition of the value of the moment and the person beside them. That evening, they parted with a simple nod and promised to meet again. Each returned home carrying thoughts of the other. The young woman felt a mixture of excitement and curiosity. Thinking about the cowboy and the way he had treated her with respect and consideration, the cowboy returned to his room at the inn, thinking of her courage and the intelligence in her words. Neither knew what the future held, but both were aware that the bond they had begun yesterday was growing into something meaningful and lasting. The night was calm, with stars scattered across the sky. The town slept peacefully, but the minds of two people were active with reflection and anticipation. They each considered the possibilities of their connection and the importance of allowing things to develop naturally. Both understood that relationships were built slowly and with patience. The cowboy admired her independence and honesty. The young woman admired his integrity and steady presence. They were drawn together by more than just attraction, by respect, understanding, and the recognition of each other as unique individuals. Morning would come, bringing new experiences and opportunities for them to interact. The bond of trust and curiosity continued to grow with each passing moment. They had learned about each other not just through words, but through actions, shared moments, and mutual understanding. The beginning of their connection had grown deeper with shared experiences, the handling of challenges, and quiet conversations that revealed character and heart. The young woman went to bed feeling hopeful and reflective, thinking about the cowboy and the way he made her feel seen and respected. The cowboy rested, thinking about the young woman and the quiet strength she showed every day. Each carried a sense of anticipation for the days ahead, knowing that their story was unfolding slowly, naturally, and with the potential to shape their lives profoundly. The second part of their journey had ended with deeper understanding, a growing connection, and the promise of experiences that would continue to test their courage and build their trust in each other. The following days were filled with routines, but both the cowboy and the young woman found moments to cross paths. The market became a place of small conversations and shared smiles. Each meeting was brief, yet meaningful, building layers of familiarity and understanding. The cowboy noticed the way she moved through her work, her focus and care for the people around her. The young woman noticed his quiet attention and how he seemed aware of everyone, yet carried his own calm center. There was a rhythm forming between them, something unspoken yet strong that neither could ignore. One afternoon, a messenger arrived in town with troubling news. A fire had broken out at a neighboring ranch and several people were trapped needing help. The cowboy immediately felt the weight of the situation. He knew the risks, but also knew that he could not ignore the call for help. He gathered supplies and rode out without hesitation. The young woman noticed the urgency in his departure and felt a mixture of concern and admiration. She had learned by now that he acted with principle and courage, yet never sought praise. At the ranch, the fire was raging strong, and the smoke thick. The cowboy moved quickly, organizing others to rescue people and bring animals to safety. He worked tirelessly, knowing that every second mattered. The heat and smoke were overwhelming, but he did not falter. People followed his lead, trusting his experience and judgment. He coordinated efforts calmly, making sure everyone had a role and that no one was left behind. His determination and selflessness were evident in every action he took. The young woman had decided to follow in secret. She wanted to make sure he was safe and perhaps offer help where possible. She arrived at the edge of the ranch and watched as he directed people with focus and strength. She could see the strain on his face, the intensity in his eyes, yet he remained composed. It struck her deeply to see someone give so much without thought of reward or recognition. She felt a growing connection with the man, not only for his courage, but for the heart she saw in his actions. Hours passed and the fire was eventually brought under control, but not without cost. The cowboy had sustained injuries and exhaustion marked his face and body. He had risked his safety to protect others and paid a high price for his dedication. The young woman stepped forward quietly, offering her assistance. She helped tend to minor wounds and offered water and comfort. His gratitude was quiet and sincere. He did not speak of heroism, only of relief that everyone had made it out safely. She realized then the depth of his character, the willingness to sacrifice, and the humility that accompanied his bravery. After the chaos settled, they rode back toward town together. The young woman spoke softly about the danger in his actions. He listened and acknowledged her words without dwelling on his pain or effort. The conversation was gentle and honest. There was no need for dramatics, only a sharing of thoughts and feelings that strengthened the bond forming between them. They rode side by side in silence for some time, each lost in their own reflections, yet comforted by the presence of the other. When they returned to town, word had already spread of the cowboy's bravery and the way he had saved lives. People praised him, but he responded with quiet humility, always shifting focus to the efforts of everyone involved. The young woman watched the reactions around them, noticing his grace under attention. She admired his strength and the way he carried responsibility without seeking accolades. It deepened her respect and feeling for him. She understood that his actions were a reflection of his character, not a performance for others. That evening they sat by the river reflecting on the day. The young woman spoke about the fear and uncertainty she felt watching the fire from a distance. The cowboy listened carefully, acknowledging her feelings and expressing that courage was not the absence of fear, but acting despite it. They discussed values, friendship, trust, and the meaning of sacrifice. The conversation flowed naturally, revealing sides of themselves they had not shown others. Both felt a sense of intimacy in the sharing of thoughts and experiences. The bond between them had grown beyond simple attraction. It had become a connection built on respect, understanding, and shared principles. Over the next few days, the cowboy dealt with recovery from minor injuries, and the town adjusted back to normal life. Yet the young woman could see how the experience had changed him slightly, making him more contemplative and aware of the community around him. She herself felt the change in perspective, seeing how someone could act with such selflessness and integrity. Their interactions became deeper, more intentional. Conversations touched on hopes, fears, dreams, and responsibilities. The trust and understanding between them grew stronger each day. One afternoon, as they walked along the outskirts of town, they discussed choices and consequences. The cowboy spoke about the importance of giving people the freedom to choose, even when the stakes were high. The young woman shared her belief in responsibility and fairness in decision-making. They explored scenarios in life where actions had weight and the impact of selflessness. It was a serious discussion, yet filled with empathy and curiosity. Both learned from each other, gaining insights they had not considered before. By the end of the week, the cowboy had paid a high personal price for his courage and effort, yet he remained humble and focused on others. The young woman had seen firsthand the depths of his character and felt a connection that transcended simple admiration. They understood each other on a level that few could. The experiences they shared created a foundation for trust, respect, and emotional closeness. It was clear that the journey between them was far from over, yet significant steps had been taken toward a deep and meaningful bond. Night fell over the town and both returned to their homes, reflecting on the events of the week. The young woman thought about courage, responsibility, and the nature of selflessness. The cowboy considered the importance of choice, connection, and the subtle strength found in human bonds. Their minds were occupied with thoughts of each other, yet they felt a sense of peace, knowing that the foundation of their relationship was built on understanding, respect, and authentic care. The third part of their story ended with quiet reflection, growing connection, and the knowledge that real sacrifice had been made. Both had seen the character of the other and recognized the depth of feeling and integrity present. Their bond had deepened through action, shared experience, and conversation. And the path ahead promised further challenges, opportunities, and the chance to explore the strength and resilience of their connection. Days passed after the fire, and the town returned to its normal rhythm. The cowboy had spent time recovering from his injuries, and the young woman continued her work at the market. Yet there was a quiet tension in the air, a sense that something significant had shifted between them. They had shared moments of trust, courage, and understanding that could not be ignored. Both felt it without speaking openly about it. Their eyes met more often, their gestures carried subtle acknowledgement, and their conversations had grown deeper and more personal. One morning, the cowboy approached the young woman with a thoughtful expression. He spoke about the importance of choices and the way every decision affected not just oneself, but those around. She listened carefully, appreciating his perspective and adding her own thoughts. Their conversation moved naturally to their lives, their hopes and fears. The cowboy admitted the sacrifices he had made for the fire and how it had left him weary, yet satisfied that he had done the right thing. The young woman acknowledged his courage and the cost he had paid. There was no need for flattery, only honest recognition of actions and character. Later in the day, they walked together through fields at the edge of town. The air was cool, and the lights soft and golden. They spoke about independence and responsibility and the balance between caring for others and caring for oneself. The cowboy expressed his respect for her autonomy and the choices she made daily. She recognized the sincerity in his words, realizing he valued her not for what she could give, but for who she was. Their connection deepened through shared understanding and the mutual respect for each other as individuals. As evening approached, the cowboy invited to sit by a quiet stream away from the bustle of the town. They sat together watching the water flow slowly past. He spoke about giving people the freedom to choose their path even when the consequences were unknown. She reflected on her own life and the decisions she had made that led her to this moment. Their conversation was honest and patient, allowing space for thoughts to unfold naturally. They shared fears, hopes, and dreams in a way that built trust and understanding. The young woman realized that he was not only strong but thoughtful, considerate, and willing to accept responsibility for his actions. A few days later, a new challenge came to the town. A dispute over land and resources threatened to create tension between neighbors. The cowboy knew he could intervene and help mediate. The young woman chose to accompany him, not as a follower, but as a partner in understanding the situation. They listened to both sides, calmly speaking words of reason and encouraging compromise. The townspeople noticed the respect and patience in their approach. The cowboy and the young woman worked together, demonstrating fairness, integrity, and empathy. Their cooperation strengthened not only the resolution of the conflict, but also their bond. One afternoon, they sat on a hill overlooking the valley, discussing the future. The cowboy explained that he valued freedom and choice above all. He said that he would never force anyone to be with him or to follow a path they did not want. The young woman felt a mixture of admiration and relief. She realized that his actions were consistent with his words, that he truly believed in the right to choose. She understood that whatever happened between them would be based on mutual respect and desire rather than obligation. As the sun began to set, they walked back to town side by side, reflecting on the week. The cowboy spoke about the importance of learning from experience and facing challenges with courage and patience. She responded, sharing her belief that true connection came from understanding and acceptance of both strength and vulnerability. Their words flowed naturally, forming a dialogue that strengthened their understanding of each other. Each step they took together felt purposeful, meaningful, and free from external pressure. That evening, the cowboy returned to the inn contemplating the choices he had made and the risks he had taken. He thought about the young woman and the bond that had grown between them. He realized that the greatest reward of his actions was not recognition or praise, but the respect, trust they had built together. The young woman reflected on the same thoughts, considering the value of choice and the rare presence of someone who acted with integrity and honesty. Both recognized the importance of allowing the other to decide the direction of their connection. Over the following days, they spent time together in quiet activities, walking through fields, visiting neighbors, helping with small tasks, and simply talking. Every shared moment reinforced the mutual respect and trust between them. They discovered the subtle joy of companionship without expectation. The cowboy had paid a high price in action and effort, yet he offered nothing but respect and freedom to the young woman. She appreciated this deeply, recognizing that true connection required no force, only honesty, integrity, and choice. The story reached a point where both understood the depth of their bond. They had faced challenges together, learned from each other, and grown in understanding and care. The cowboy had shown the cost of sacrifice and the value of humility. The young woman had shown strength, compassion, and thoughtfulness in her responses. Together, they had formed a connection built on respect, freedom, and genuine appreciation of the other as an individual. The fourth part of their journey ended with clarity of intention, mutual understanding, and the quiet power of giving someone the choice to decide their own path. Morning came with a soft light spilling across the town. The cowboy prepared for another day of riding and small tasks, but his thoughts were with the young woman. He considered the events that had passed, the fire, the disputes, and the quiet moments of understanding between them. There was a sense that everything they had shared had led to this point. He did not rush or push, knowing that the choice must come from her heart and mind. The young woman began her day at the market, arranging baskets and speaking with neighbors. Her mind wandered to the cowboy and the respect he had shown for her independence and choices. She reflected on their shared experiences, on the courage he had displayed, and the way he had offered nothing but trust and understanding. She felt a sense of anticipation and thought carefully about her feelings, considering what was important to her and what she valued in life. By midday, the cowboy rode into the town square. He did not seek attention or make announcements. He simply moved calmly through the streets, noting the familiar sights and sounds. People greeted him, and he nodded, acknowledging them without stopping. He knew that his presence mattered more than words in this moment. He approached the young woman, gently speaking about the day and listening to her thoughts. Their conversation flowed naturally, with honesty and quiet sincerity. There was no pressure, only openness and respect. As the afternoon settled, they walked along the edge of town toward a hill overlooking fields and forests. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of grass and earth. They spoke about life choices and the importance of living true to oneself. The cowboy shared that he valued freedom and understanding above all else. He explained that he could not ask her to be with him or make her decision for her. She listened intently, realizing that this respect for her autonomy was the greatest gift he could offer. She understood the depth of his feelings and the integrity in his words and actions. The young woman spoke about her own hopes and dreams, about the life she wanted to lead, and the principles she lived by. She expressed gratitude for the way he had allowed her to decide her own path. The cowboy listened carefully, acknowledging her words without judgment. There was a quiet power in the moment, the acknowledgement that love and connection could exist without force or expectation. They shared stories and reflections on courage, compassion, and the meaning of trust. Each conversation strengthened the bond they had cultivated over days of shared experience. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, the cowboy stopped and looked at the young woman. He explained again that he valued her choice and freedom and that he would support her decision no matter what. She felt a warmth in her chest, recognizing the depth of care and respect in his words. She knew that the connection they shared was rare, built on honesty, integrity, and mutual understanding. The decision she was about to make was not easy, but it was clear that it must come from her heart. After moments of quiet reflection, she spoke. She expressed her desire to be with him, acknowledging the respect, trust, and care that had developed between them. The cowboy listened attentively and nodded. There was no grand gesture, only a steady affirmation of the bond they had formed. They understood that their connection was built not on urgency, but on the gradual building of trust, respect, and shared experiences. Each had seen the character of the other and chosen freely to continue the journey together. The rest of the day was spent walking through fields and quiet paths, talking and laughing. There was a natural ease in their movements, a sense of harmony in the way they shared space and conversation. The cowboy demonstrated care through actions simple and meaningful. The young woman responded with warmth and openness. Each step together strengthened the trust and understanding between them. They realized that the journey of connection was ongoing, built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and the freedom to make choices. As night fell, they returned to the town, observing the soft glow of lanterns and the quiet of people settling in for rest. They spoke briefly about the importance of patience in life and in relationships. They reflected on the events that had brought them to this moment, understanding that every challenge and act of courage had contributed to the trust and respect they now shared. Their bond was not sudden or forced, but a natural result of shared experiences and thoughtful choices. The cowboy spent the night reflecting on the young woman and the path they had chosen to walk together. He appreciated the integrity and independence she carried, and understood that their connection would continue to grow as long as they honored the principles of respect, trust, and choice. The young woman rested, thinking of the cowboy and the quiet strength and care he had shown. She knew that their decision to be together was based on mutual understanding and freedom, and that it held a deeper meaning than fleeting attraction or convenience. The story of their connection concluded with a sense of fulfillment and hope. They had faced challenges together, learned from each other, and made decisions that reflected respect for individual choice. The cowboy had given everything he could without demanding anything in return. The young woman had recognized the value of freedom, integrity, and respect, and chosen to join him on a path built on these principles. The final part of their journey emphasized that true connection comes from mutual understanding, patience, and the freedom to choose, and that love and respect are most powerful when given without expectation. Days passed since the young woman had made her choice and decided to be with the cowboy. The town had settled back into its normal rhythm, but for them, a new chapter had begun. They spent mornings walking together through fields, helping neighbors, and listening to the stories of townspeople. Every action felt lighter, knowing that respect and understanding were at the center of their connection. The cowboy noticed the way she moved through the world with confidence and care, and admired the strength she carried so naturally. She noticed how he could be gentle and protective without overstepping, and how his quiet presence gave a sense of safety and calm. One afternoon, they came across a small group of travelers needing guidance. The cowboy offered help, calmly explaining the way through rough terrain and safe places to rest. The young woman assisted by providing food and comfort, offering words of encouragement. Working together, they realized how well their skills complemented each other. The townspeople noticed their partnership and began to respect not just the cowboy, but the teamwork and understanding between them. This strengthened the young woman's confidence and gave the cowboy a sense of pride in the life they were building. Together, as the days turned into weeks, they explored nearby hills and valleys, finding places where they could talk freely away from the watchful eyes of the town. They discussed dreams and ambitions and what it meant to live a life true to oneself. The young woman spoke about her desire to learn new skills and take on responsibilities. that would make her independent, yet connected to her community. The cowboy shared stories of his travels and the lessons he had learned about patience, courage, and the importance of respecting others. Their conversations deepened their bond and allowed them to understand the values and principles each held dear. One morning, a new challenge arrived. Heavy rains had caused parts of the river to flood, threatening some of the farms and homes near the outskirts of town. The cowboy quickly organized volunteers to help move livestock and secure property. The young woman joined him, helping coordinate efforts and ensuring people had the supplies they needed. The task was demanding and required careful planning and cooperation. Together, they worked tirelessly through the day, guiding animals to safety and reinforcing vulnerable structures. The sense of shared purpose brought them closer as they faced obstacles and found solutions together. During a quiet moment, they sat on a hill watching the sun break through clouds after the storm. They spoke about resilience and the way people could come together in times of need. The young woman expressed admiration for the cowboy's ability to remain calm and make decisions under pressure. The cowboy acknowledged her observations and explained that true strength often came from understanding one's limitations and working with others to overcome difficulties. They reflected on how their partnership had grown stronger through challenges and shared responsibility. There was a sense of harmony between them, a quiet knowledge that they could face whatever came. Next together, as the town recovered from the flood, the cowboy and the young woman continued to grow in understanding. They spent time teaching each other skills. The cowboy showed her methods for managing land and caring for animals, while she introduced ideas for organizing and supporting the community more effectively. They shared their thoughts on fairness, compassion, and leadership. Both realized that their lives were richer for the presence of the other, and that every day together offered opportunities to learn and support one another. One evening they walked through the forest near the town. The light of the setting sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows and creating a peaceful atmosphere. They talked about the future and the ways they wanted to live their lives. The cowboy expressed his desire for simplicity and authenticity, while the young woman spoke about exploring possibilities without losing sight of what mattered most. They agreed that their path would be guided by respect, patience, and the freedom to make choices for themselves and each other. The forest seemed to echo their words, and the calmness of the moment reinforced the trust they shared. As weeks turned into months, they continued to face small challenges in their daily lives. Each time they encountered difficulties, they approached them together. Whether it was helping a neighbor resolve a dispute, repairing damage after storms, or dealing with personal doubts and fears, they relied on communication, empathy, and shared effort. Their bond deepened with each experience, teaching them not only about each other, but also about patience, compromise, and the value of mutual support. They had learned that love and connection were not just about feelings, but about actions, respect, and shared growth. One morning, the young woman discovered a small abandoned cabin in the woods. She suggested to the cowboy that they could restore it and make it a place of retreat and reflection. He agreed, and together they worked on repairing the structure, painting walls, and creating a small garden. The process was slow and required attention to detail and teamwork. As they worked side by side, they spoke freely about their hopes and imagined what life would be like in this new space. The cabin became a symbol of their commitment to each other and the life they wanted to build. A place of freedom and choice where they could be themselves without fear of judgment or expectation. The seasons changed, and with them came new opportunities and challenges. They adapted to the rhythm of life, learning when to act quickly and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen. Their connection became a source of strength, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. The cowboy continued to be a figure of calm and leadership in the town, while the young woman brought energy, insight, and kindness to every situation she encountered. Together, they complemented each other, their differences creating balance and their similarities creating unity. Evenings were often spent by the stream where they had once reflected on choices. They sat quietly listening to the water, sharing stories of the past and dreaming about the future. The young woman spoke about her desire to travel and learn more about the world, While the cowboy considered the places he had seen and the lessons he had learned, they promised to support each other in pursuing these dreams. Understanding that their connection did not limit individual growth, but encouraged it. Their love was rooted in freedom, trust, and shared purpose. As the story continued beyond the initial challenges, they faced life with a renewed sense of partnership. The cowboy had shown that true strength was in sacrifice, humility, and respect for others, while the young woman had demonstrated courage, independence, and compassion. Together they built a life not defined by external expectations, but by the values they held and the trust they cultivated. Each day brought new lessons and opportunities, yet the foundation remained unchanged. Respect, choice, and genuine care for one another. The sixth part of their journey highlighted that. Life together was not always dramatic but meaningful. Small moments of shared effort, quiet conversation, and mutual understanding became the markers of a relationship built on authenticity. They learned that true partnership was about being present, supporting each other, and allowing freedom within connection. Through challenges, reflection, and shared experiences, they continued to grow individually and together, creating a life that honored both love and personal choice, showing that the greatest bond comes from respect, trust, and the willingness to walk beside each other through every season of life. The seasons continued to change, bringing new colors and life to the land. The cowboy and the young woman spent mornings walking through fields, talking about the changes they saw and the lessons they had learned. Each day brought a deeper sense of understanding about the world and each other. They had become inseparable companions, learning how to navigate not just life together, but the challenges that came with their responsibilities in the town and the land they cared for. One morning, they discovered that a nearby barn had collapsed during the night due to heavy snow. They rode quickly to assess the situation, seeing that several animals were trapped inside. The cowboy immediately went to work directing the rescue, moving carefully to avoid injury. The young woman joined him, coordinating help from neighbors and guiding animals to safety. They worked side by side, their movements in sync, communicating without words. The task was exhausting and required patience, strength, and trust in one another. By late afternoon, every animal was safe, and the barn was cleared. They paused to catch their breath, leaning on each other, feeling the satisfaction of work well done. The shared effort reminded them of how strong their bond had become and how they could rely on each other in difficult times. After the rescue, they returned to the town slowly, taking time to enjoy the quiet of the countryside. The cowboy spoke about the importance of preparation and foresight, while the young woman discussed the value of empathy and quick decision-making in crises. They exchanged ideas and learned from each other, each insight reinforcing their respect for the other. Their partnership was not just emotional. It was practical and grounded in the realities of life. Showing how they complemented each other in every way, in the following weeks, they began working on a new project. The young woman suggested planting a small orchard near the edge of their land. The cowboy agreed, and together they planned the layout, selecting trees and preparing the soil. They spent mornings planting and afternoons tending to the saplings. It was slow work requiring care, patience, and dedication. As the trees grew, so did their shared sense of achievement and pride. The orchard became a symbol of their teamwork and the life they were building together. A place that would provide fruit, shade, and a sense of accomplishment for years to come. As the orchard grew, they also found time to explore beyond the town. They ventured to nearby forests and hills, discovering hidden streams, rock formations, and quiet meadows. These explorations were opportunities to connect with nature and with each other. They spoke about dreams, fears, and aspirations, learning more about the strengths and vulnerabilities that shaped them. The cowboy shared stories of his travels and encounters with people from other towns, while the young woman shared thoughts on the future she envisioned for herself and the community. Each conversation deepened their understanding and strengthened the emotional connection that had grown naturally over time. During one of these excursions, they came across a small group of travelers who had lost their way. The cowboy offered guidance, using his knowledge of the land to show them a safe path. The young woman offered food and comfort, reassuring them and keeping spirits high. Their teamwork was seamless, showing the quiet strength of their partnership. The travelers expressed gratitude, impressed by the couple's ability to handle challenges with calmness and cooperation. This interaction reinforced their belief in the importance of kindness, patience, and mutual support. Back in town, the young woman suggested starting a small school to teach children and adults practical skills. The cowboy supported her idea, offering his experience in farming, horse care, and land management. Together, they organized classes, inviting townspeople to share their knowledge as well. The project brought the community closer and highlighted the couple's leadership without demanding authority. They worked as equals, demonstrating that true partnership was built on respect, shared goals, and encouragement rather than control or hierarchy. One evening, while walking through the orchard, they discussed the idea of their future beyond the town. They considered traveling to nearby regions, meeting new people, and learning new skills. But always with the promise to return to the place and life they had built together. The conversation was gentle, thoughtful, and filled with possibilities. They understood that freedom and choice were essential, that any future decision would be made together with respect for each other's desires and independence. This understanding strengthened the foundation of their relationship and brought them a sense of peace. As the year progressed, their bond was tested in small ways. Unexpected storms damaged parts of the land and disputes arose among neighbors. They faced these challenges calmly, relying on communication, patience, and collective problem-solving. The cowboy taught others the value of preparation and endurance, while the young woman encouraged empathy, fairness, and consideration. Together, they created solutions that benefited not just themselves, but the town, demonstrating that shared responsibility and respect for others were essential components of a thriving life. The young woman also began mentoring younger women in the town, showing them how to balance independence with collaboration. The cowboy supported these efforts, sharing practical skills and reinforcing the value of courage, integrity, and hard work. They became role models not through grand gestures, but through consistent actions, demonstrating what a life of respect, partnership, and choice could look like. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, they sat in their orchard reflecting on the past months. They spoke about challenges, growth, and the journey they had taken together. The young woman expressed gratitude for the cowboy's respect for her autonomy and the way he had allowed her to make her own choices. The cowboy shared his appreciation for her strength, wisdom, and compassion. They understood that their connection was not just love, but a true partnership built on trust, respect, and shared effort. The orchard, the town, and their daily routines had become symbols of the life they were creating together. One step at a time. As night fell, they walked back through the town under the stars, enjoying the quiet and the familiarity of their surroundings. They talked about the future, considering new projects, journeys, and opportunities, but always with the understanding that their choices would remain free, thoughtful, and shared. The cowboy and the young woman had created a life that balanced individual freedom with deep mutual respect, showing that love could thrive when choice, understanding, and partnership guided every decision. The seventh part of their journey emphasized that life together was not a series of dramatic moments, but a steady and meaningful progression. Each day, each decision, shared experience strengthened their bond and illustrated the power of patience, trust, and respect. They learned that true connection was nurtured through shared effort, empathy, and the freedom to make choices, showing that a partnership built on these principles could endure through any challenge, season, or change.